Hello and welcome back to the CSS class. My dear friend, we have invested time in trying to understand selectors in CSS. And in selectors, I had introduced you to basic selectors. Now, there are three basic selectors which you would be repeatedly using in your front-end development life, which is your element selector, which is usually represented with the name of the tag, followed by it is the class selector, which is represented by a dot followed by the class's name. And last but not the least is the ID selector, which is always represented with a hash followed by the ID name. Now, each of these selectors can be individually used. Yes, I also know about it. But what if I told you, you can actually combine these selectors and use them? What I'm trying to say is, you can combine your element selector and your class selector like this. You can combine your class selector with another class selector like this. You can combine your ID selector with the class selector as well. So you have all these different combinations. How are we going to use these combinations? Let me show you. For this, if I take you to my browser window, please understand this is a simple unstyled HTML document which I have. If I increase the size a little bit for you, as you can clearly see, web development, a paragraph, artificial intelligence, a paragraph, cybersecurity, and a paragraph, right? Now, I want to apply styling to this and through this show you the different combinations which you can be using, right? Now, the first question which I want to be answered in your minds is, can a particular HTML element belong to more than a single class? Because in the previous class, if you remember, we had assigned or allocated or we had categorized the different HTML elements into different classes. That is great. But every element belonged to only a single class. Now, my question is, can an element belong to multiple classes? What do I mean by this? See, it's very simple. If in case I take you to my editor, then this is the code for that document. It's quite straightforward, nothing unique about this code. But what I want you to understand is, I've told you always an HTML document can also be represented as a tree like this. So you know, HTML is there, inside that you have your head, inside that you have your title. Of course, there is no styling present. Say inside HTML, you further have your body. Inside body, you further have all this H1P, H1P, H1P elements, right? Now, my question is, inside the body, there are all these elements. Can these elements belong to multiple classes at the same time? Let's experiment. If in case I take you back to my browser window, please understand, my dear friend, this is what I want to show you, right? So now watch it. Let us also bring the code as well into the picture. So if I bring my HTML code as well, now here I am going to make these elements belong to multiple classes. First of all, in CSS, let me define those classes, right? Now, I'm not going to write CSS externally in a separate file. I'm going to write it internally itself. And how to write internal CSS? You know, go into the head tag and after title, please create another tag called as a style tag like this. Great. Inside the style tag, what am I going to do? I'm going to create my first class. So always a class selector begins with a dot. So dot followed by the class name. I will call it as BG1, short for background 1. Inside that the declaration, and inside the declaration I will tell background color is red. Any confusion? This is one class. You can have any number of properties. I'm just creating a single property. Next, delete that extra space. Next, I will come outside and I will create one more class. Leave one more line space. I will tell dot bg2 or background 2. Inside that, I'm going to give the declaration. There, I will tell background color. And there, I will tell background color should be black. Wonderful. Next, I'm going to come further inside and I will create one more bg3. And there I will tell background color is maybe teal like this. Teal is another color. Any confusion till here? So basically my point is very simple. 3 classes. Each class styled differently. Now I'm not telling which of these elements belong to which class. We will define that. But as of now 3 classes I've created. I want to create even more classes. So what I will do is, I will now create one class. I will call it as dot font1. Font1. Right? Inside that, I will tell font family should be cursive and font color should be yellow. I'll just copy this class, paste it again. Right? I'll make this as font2. There I will tell font family has to be monospace and color has to be white. I will further paste it once more. Now I'll tell this is font3, right? Here I will tell font family has to be fantasy and maybe the color has to be navy like this. Any confusion? Now as you can see, a total of 6 classes I have, right? Now I will come down to my HTML. In my HTML, first and foremost, let us see, I have this paragraph is what I want to style. Let us assume this paragraph is what I want to style. So I will go inside that p tag. Now I will tell which is the class I want the p tag to belong to. So I will tell class. Further, inside this class, what I should tell is which class it belongs to. Now I have a variety of classes to choose from. Maybe I will start with bg1. So I will tell bg1. If I tell bg1, if I scroll on top, what is the property bg1? See, this selector selects a element which belongs to class bg1 and colors its background as red. Let us see whether that happens. If in case I go and I refresh my HTML page, clearly you can see that definitely it happens. No doubt about it. But now only background color is red. But the font is still different. It is still the default font. Now I want to style the font also. Now for styling font, I have 3 classes. Now the question is, can I tell p element that, hey p element, you should belong not only to class bg1, you should also be belonging to class font1 like this. Can I say? Definitely you can do that. How? If you ask me, simple. Go inside that class, after bg1, leave a space and then tell which other class you want to belong to, which is font1. If I tell font1 like this, and now if in case I go and refresh it, there you go. So what is the conclusion here? An HTML element can belong to multiple classes. And how do you assign multiple classes? By making them space separated. Space separated. I hope till this point of time I am crystal clear. Similarly, I will come to the next paragraph, right? In the next paragraph, what I will tell is, I want it to belong to a class bg2. So I will tell class bg2. If I go and refresh, 100% that background style would have got applied here, it became black. It became black. If I scroll on top, I want this to further belong to a class called as font2 so that the font family is monospace and the color of the font is white. Can you do that? Yes. Go back inside the class, leave a space, tell the next class it should belong to, which is font2. If I do this, and if in case I go refresh it, clearly you can see it as reflected. Similarly, I'll come down to my last paragraph. And there I will tell the class that you should belong to is bg3 and font3 by leaving space like this. If in case I do this and if I come back to my HTML, to my Chrome output and if I just refresh it, there you go. So my dear friend, it works. It works beautifully, no doubt about it, right? So the first question has been answered with crystal clear clarity in our minds, which is an HTML element can belong to multiple classes. And how do you ensure that? If I go down, as you can see, you must always make it space separated like this. Any confusion till here? So all should be space separated. Beautiful. Now, next, I'm going to show you how an element and a class selector can be combined. How a class and a class selector can be combined. How ID and a class selector can be combined. If you're excited, stay tuned. Now it is time for me to explain how we can be combining these basic selectors and make a combined selector. Now, what do you mean? See, I want to combine the element selector and the class selector together and create a unique selector. How does this work? Let me give you an example. If I take you to my HTML editor, you must understand this is the same program we previously wrote, right? Wherein different classes I had created. Now what I want you to understand is, this is the HTML tree for the same document. Now in this HTML tree, please understand, I want to select the first H1 element only and only if it belongs to a class called as web. Now what do I mean by that? Very simple. If I scroll down, this is my first H1 element, web development. As of now, clearly you can see it doesn't belong to any class. First, I will make it belong to a class. So I will go inside that and I will tell class. And I will tell that class is web. Now you might be wondering, Okay, Rohit, but where is that dot web CSS selector that we can always create? Okay. But before creating, understand there are many H1 elements, but I don't want all the H1 elements to be selected. I want only H1 element which belongs to a class called as web to be selected, which means based on element first selection should happen. Then the second criteria of selection is the class, which means element selector, class selector must be combined. How to do that? Watch it. I will go inside my style tag. I'll press enter after the last one. There, first requirement is element. Which element? H1. So I'll tell H1. Second requirement is class. Which class? Web. So I'll tell dot web. This is how you combine an element and a class selector into one. I'll put the declaration. Inside the declaration, now what I'm going to do is simple. If this gets selected, now what has to happen? What has to happen is very, very easy. I want maybe the background color to be red and the color to be yellow itself. So I will just tell that. Background color red and color yellow. If in case I do this, now out of all the different H1s I have, the first H1, it is H1, first criteria is satisfied. See, when the selector works, you tell H1. It goes and checks for H1. Yes, 3 matches are there. But then it sees that, oh, it should also belong to a class called as web. Unfortunately, those other 2 H1s don't belong to the class web. There is only one guy who matches the criteria. That is selected and that is styled in this particular property and value. If I go back to my browser window, you can observe carefully, this is how things work. If I just refresh it, then definitely it has happened. Any confusion till this point of time? If I bring my HTML code also into the picture, I want you to understand that none of these H1s get selected. Because see, come down. These H1s don't belong to any class. They don't belong to any class. Let us assume I give it some class. Maybe I'll call the second H1. I will call the class as AI. I'll give it a class called as AI. The third H1, I will give it a class called as CS, short for cybersecurity. Now, if in case I go back and refresh it, you can notice none of them get selected because, yes, element is H1, but class is not web. These two will not get selected. What gets selected is only this P tag or this H1 tag. Any confusion till this point of time? So, this gives you more control. Earlier, you were just selecting based on element or based on class. Now, the selection is based on element and class. Both criteria have to be satisfied. So I put this crystal clear till here. Now, can in a similar manner an element be selected only and only if it belongs to 2 classes? Can this be done? Definitely, it can be done by combining the class selector and the class selector together. How to do it? Let me show you. All right, now it is time for us to understand what exactly is the use of combining a class selector with another class selector, because this is something which you are going to be using a lot, right? So class selector and the class selector I'm going to combine. Now, where would we be using this? Let me give you an example. If in case I take you to my browser window, please understand this, all of you. This is the browser output. This is the code, right? If you focus on this P tag, if you focus on this P tag, what you must understand is it belongs to 2 classes. Which is the 2 classes? The first class it belongs to is BG1. And if I scroll on, what does BG1 do? Applies the background color red. Yes, that has happened. The second class it belongs to is font1, and font1 is going to make it yellow and is going to make the font family as cursor. Wonderful. Now, I want to create another unique selector, which if in case any element belongs to the class BG1 and belongs to the class font1, it's and both conditions must be satisfied. If both conditions are satisfied, then it must increase the font size. The font size should increase. How are we going to do this? Simple. Combine 2 class selectors together. A class selector and a class selector. How are we going to do this? Focus. I'll go after the last one. I'll press enter. And here, what is the first condition you told? It should belong to which class? BG1. Tell that. Dot BG1. But that's not the only condition. What is the second condition? It should also belong to a class called as font1. Tell that dot font1 and be very careful. Do not leave space because space means something very different in CSS and I will explain that to you. I'll put my declaration. After putting my declaration, I will tell, hey, listen, if you go into my HTML document, find an element which belongs to both these classes, then increase the font size to 25 pixels. Now, what do you mean by pixels, etc.? I will explain when I take up the font property in depth, but I will tell font size 25 px like this. Px stands for pixels. Now, if I scroll down, watch it, out of all these different elements, which is the only p tag which satisfies the condition of belonging to both the classes? There is only one p tag, which is this, and this gets selected. Any confusion till here? So watch it and look at the magic carefully. If I refresh, you can see it has increased in size. This p tag did not increase, this p tag did not increase, only and only this p tag increased. So clearly, if you combine selectors, you have more control over the styling of your document, right? In fact, when we do some projects, you will see all this in live action, which will give you more clarity. But now it is my duty to set that foundation for you. And I hope the foundation is as strong as ever. Now, let us understand what could be the use case of combining an ID and a class selector together. Stay tuned. Now it's time for us to understand the last combination, which is how to combine an ID and a class selector like this, right? So let me show you the control that it offers. If I take you to my HTML editor, then please understand this is the same HTML code. If I scroll down, as you can see, everything is the same, right? This is the tree. Now, what I want you to understand in this tree is that I want to select the second header. And which is the second header? This is the second header, which is nothing but artificial intelligence. I want to select this, right? What I'm going to do is, I will go and I will give it a unique ID. So before that class, I will just tell ID like this. And I will give it an ID, I'll call it as header2. You can call it whatever you want, I'm calling it as header2. Like this. Any confusion till this point of time? Wonderful. Now, I want to write a CSS selector which will select an element based on two criteria. First criteria is that it should belong to a ID, or its ID should be header2, and it should also belong to a class called as AI. Both the conditions should be satisfied. How am I going to write it? Watch it. I'll just go back into my style tag, and there I will add another style. So I will tell leave one more line space. Yeah. There on top, take the cursor on top. Now what I'm going to do is I will just tell like this. First of all, how do you select the ID? Simple, by telling hash. Which ID do you want to select? Header2. Next, that is not the only condition. One class also should be selected. So I'll tell dot. Which is the name of the class? AI. So I'll tell AI. Next, I'll put my declaration. And inside that, what I want to do is I want to make the background color as gray. So I'll just tell background color gray like this. G-R-E-Y. Any confusion till this point of time? Now, understand this. When this selector goes into the HTML document, first it will look for an element which has the ID header2, and that is nothing but this one. After which, that is not the only condition. It will next further check whether the class is AI. Yes, class is also AI. That element gets selected and the styling is applied. If I have to show you the output, watch it carefully. If I take you to my browser window and there, if in case I refresh this document, it gets colored gray. So I hope this ID and class selector combined together, how it works is crystal clear to you. Now the imagination is limitless here, right? You can imagine, and based on your requirement, you will have to use the selectors in a variety of combinations. And usually students understand HTML very easily, but when it comes to CSS, which is what formats your HTML document, which is what brings your HTML document to life, there is a lot of confusion because the foundation is not set right. But I hope you will not be facing the same problem. So I've shown you how to combine an element and a class. I've showed you how to combine class and class together. I've shown you how to combine ID and class together as well. So I hope till here things are crystal clear. Now it is time for me to introduce you to two very important HTML tags. Yes, you heard me right, HTML tags, which I had not spoken in HTML. But without these two tags, you will never ever be able to implement CSS effectively. What do I mean is, These are the two tags. One is called as the div tag and the other is called as the span tag. Now, a div tag, as you can clearly see, is a block type element. Whereas your span tag, as you can clearly see, is an inline element. Now, what is the primary purpose of having div and span? If you ask me, my answer would be one line, which is a div can be used to group multiple HTML elements into a division or a group. Same is the case with span, but this does it in the form of a block, whereas that does it in the form of a row or inline. Any confusion till here? How does this work in real time? Let me show you. If I take you to my browser window, please understand, my dear friend, this is an HTML document I have. If I increase the size a little bit, you can notice it is similar to the previous document, but few changes. A web development, there is a paragraph, technologies to be learned in web development, and I've also given a list of the different technologies one should be learning. Similarly, if I come down for artificial intelligence also I have, for cyber security also I have. If I scroll down, you can notice. Any confusion till this point of time? Wonderful. Now, clearly there is no styling here. Now, what I want to do is, if I scroll up completely, see, every element related to web development, I want to group it together. As of now, if I just inspect this page, watch it, if I open my Chrome developer tools and if I start inspecting this page, you will notice this is the body, right? This is H1. This is the first header, web development. Then there is a paragraph. They are separate elements. Then there is another header. Then there is a list. All these are separate elements. Inside the list further there are list elements and stuff like that, right? As you can see, one by one, one by one. Similarly, artificial intelligence is another header. This is another paragraph. This is another header. This is again a list, right? Now what I want to do is, this header, this paragraph, this header, this list should be grouped together as one block. These should be grouped together as one block. Similarly, if I scroll down, all the cyber security and all this should be grouped together as another block. Well, this is the best use case for using a div tag. What do I mean by this? Let me take you to my HTML editor. See, please understand, my friend, in my HTML editor, as of now, this is how the tree looks like. If you trace it, this is how the tree would look like. Of course, you have H1, then you have P, then you have H2, then you have a unordered list. Inside that you have list elements. So that is how the structure flows. Any confusion till this point of time? Now what I want to do is, from this H1 web development till this closure of the list UL, all this should be grouped as one division. How am I going to do it? Let me cut all these elements from H1 till that closure of UL. I'll cut it, right? I'll cut it. This is one thing I want. Now I'll open a div tag like this. Inside the div tag, I'll paste it. I will further just indent it correctly so that it is visible to us. As you can see, this happened. Now all this is inside a division. Accordingly, even your HTML tree changes, because now these elements are not directly inside body. Inside body, there is a div. Inside div, these elements are there. Any confusion till this point of time? Similarly, I want the next part to be another division, so I will cut it. I will open a div tag. And inside the div tag, I will paste it and I will further indent it properly. The moment I do that, the HTML tree changes, because now there is a division again. Inside the division, these elements are present. Cool, isn't it? Similarly, I'll do it for the last one also. I will cut all this and I'm going to open a div tag and I'm going to paste it inside of that. If I scroll down, you can see, okay, I'll first indent it correctly. And if I scroll down, this is the closure of division. Accordingly, the HTML tree also changes where there's a div and these elements are inside the div tag. Now to show you how these things look like if I inspect them in my browser, watch it. I will take you to my browser, and in my browser, if I start inspecting these elements, watch it, if I start inspecting it. See, this is the body. This is the body. In the body, this is my first division. See my first division? This is my first division. So first of all, refresh this page. Right. Watch it, all of you. Now if I just inspect it, as you can notice, this is my first division. See, all this is grouped as one. This was not there before. This is my second division. If I scroll down, this is my third division. Did you see the magic that the div tag offers? Clearly, you've been able to divide it into different sections. Now, the beauty is you can be applying styling to each of these divisions. And each division you can style it separately. Now, what do I mean, you might ask? I'll close this developer tools. And now I will come back into my HTML document. And what I'm going to do is I will scroll on top complete. And inside the head, I'm going to apply inline CSS itself so that it is clear to you what I'm doing. So I'll tell style. There, inside style, what I'm going to do is I'll come in and first and foremost, I want to assign classes to each division. So watch it. I'll go inside the first div tag and I will tell the div tag, the class you belong to. I'll go inside div tag and I will put class equal to. And there what I'm going to tell is I'll call this class as web. Similarly, I'll assign the second division to a class. I will call this class as maybe AI. I'll call the last division, I will give it a class, I will call it as CS or short for cybersecurity. Any confusion? Now the beauty is, watch it. I'll scroll back inside my style tag. I'm going to first select my first class, which is this web. So I'll tell dot web like this. Right. There, I'm going to now style this division in a certain way. If I go back to my browser and I scroll it a little bit on top so that web development is visible, I'm going to style this division in a certain way. How it is I want everything inside this division to have a background color of red, to have a font family of cursive, to have a font color of yellow. This is what I want. Watch it. I'll just go there and I will tell, hey, listen, the background color should be red. The font family has to be cursive. And then I want the color to be yellow. The moment I do this, my dear friends, you must understand, no need to style these elements individually. You have styled the entire division and whatever styling you applied will apply automatically to every element present inside the division. Now, will this happen? Watch it. If in case I go and I just refresh this, you can notice my first division has been styled. How cool is this? How much of, work and effort it has cut down for me. Instead of individually styling, group it and style it. Beautiful, isn't it? That's why I told you div and CSS go hand in hand. Let us style our second division. So I'll go there on top. The class for the second division I've given is AI. So I will tell dot AI like this. Right. And there inside that, I'm going to, maybe how I want to color this is, I want the background color to be black. And I want the font family to be monospace. And I want my color to be gray. Any confusion till this point of time? If this happens, will it work is a bigger question. 100% it will. Watch it. If I just go and I refresh it, it has worked magical. First division, second division. Awesome, isn't it? Let us style our third division also. I will go and I will just tell the third division, the class name that we have given is CS, short for cybersecurity, so .cs. And then there I'm going to tell background color has to be maybe teal. And next I want my font family to be fantasy. And next I want my color to be navy. If I do this, and if I first go back, scroll down to that web page, if I scroll down, now if I refresh it, it has got applied. 3 divisions. Amazing, isn't it? Now you might be wondering, how is this possible that I have selected the div tag? See, class selector, .web means it selected this division. Whatever I gave as styling, how did it apply for this? If you ask me, let me explain. I'll take you to my HTML editor where you can also view the tree of this HTML document. This is the tree that we had. Now you must understand when this class selector works, right? You're telling, hey, go into my HTML document and pick a class called as web. So it will pick this. Now this is a division. So the div tag gets picked. Whatever styling you're telling is for the div tag. But look at the div tag and tell me, does the div tag have any tags inside it? Yes, so many tags are there. Now, technically speaking, the div tag is the parent. The tags inside is the child. In real life, don't you think children inherit or acquire the properties and differing behaviors from their parents. Much like in the real life, even in CSS, whatever property is applied to the parent element automatically gets inherited into the child elements, is why all these get applied to all this as well. Though I have not explicitly told that, just because div happens to be the parent, parents' properties and values is always inherited by the children. Any confusion till this point of time? This is also called as inheritance in CSS. But I hope the use of div tag is crystal clear to you. Now you may be wondering, what about span tag, Rohit? Span tag, very simple. Watch it, my friend. What I want to do is, every single first line in my paragraph, right? I want to style it in a different way. So how are we going to do that? Very simple. Now I need to group that, but I don't want to group it in the form of a block element, because if I put this with a div, what will happen is, being a block element, obviously it is going to occupy the entire width, yes, and automatically line breaks is going to happen. Anyways, I'll just show it to you. If I cut it and I put it inside div, watch it, I'll just paste it there. As you guys can see, I have put it inside the div tag, right? But now if I take you to my browser window, understand this carefully. This first line, which is this web development is the work, you can see the full stop is till this point of time. There is no line break. I want it to remain this way only. But just because I put it inside div, if I refresh, clearly you can notice line break happens. And I can inspect it and show it to you as well. If I inspect it, watch it all of you. This is my first division. Inside that, there is another division. That is why. And it's a block element, line break has to happen. So now grouping must happen, but without line break, which means I can't use a block element. I have to use an inline element. Is there an inline version of div? Yes, and that is only called a span. Look at the difference span brings into the scene. So if I take you back to my editor, I'll just replace the word div with span. Span like this. There also I will change it to span. Right. Any confusion till this point of time? I've done it. Now if in case I do this and I take you back, now see here, line break was there, but if I refresh, line break goes away. But I have grouped it. If I have to inspect it, watch it, I will go there, and this is my first division. Inside that, there is a span. As you can see, there is span. Any confusion till this point of time? Wonderful. Now let us go back to my HTML editor. Now what I want you to understand is this, that I have done it. Now why did I do this? Why I did this is because I wanted to be styled a little differently. How, if you ask me? I want the first line of every paragraph to be, maybe have a background color gray. That is what I want. So what I'll do is, first let me select all the first lines and put it within span. So I will select that and I will put it within span. Similarly, this also I will select the first line and I will just put it within span. Any confusion till this point of time? Great. Now, I would like to assign a class to all of them so that I can select them based on class. So I will go inside the first span and I will tell class equal to first line. Any name you can give, I am calling it as first line. I will copy that attribute, paste it inside every span. I'll just paste it inside every span like this. Any confusion? Now I will go back to my inline CSS or my internal CSS, and there what I'm going to do is, like this, I will press enter and there I will tell, hey listen, CSS, go into my HTML document, select based on class or dot. Which class? First line. Declaration I will put. Inside the declaration, what should be the property? Property is background color. What should be the value? Gray. Semicolon I will put it. Any confusion till this point of time? I have saved it. Now if I take you back to my browser window and my HTML editor together, understand how things work out correct. Now, the moment I do this and the moment I go here and refresh, You can see every first line, if I scroll down, has got colored gray. Of course, here gray in this background will look like a different color. That is color combinations. I can't help it. You would have seen sometimes when you're doing painting, you mix one color and another color, it looks something completely different. But the point I'm trying to make here is very simple, that definitely we have been successful in doing this. So do you see how the selectors, how div and span can work together to make your websites come alive, make it colorful, make it stylish? Again, we have just touched the initial part of CSS. There is so much more for us to learn, but I hope div and span is crystal clear to all of you.